What's up, guys? Welcome to Burn the Ship. I'm your host, Ezra. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs to professionals and professionals to entrepreneurs to help you go all in on your business. And we got a special guest today for you guys, a super special episode. And without further ado, I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Kevin Pounds, Director of Community Partnerships over at Must Ministries.
Man, Kevin, I appreciate you coming on today. I know you made a long journey over here from the office.
Yeah, man. In my house in West Cobb, that 15-minute commute was crazy.
I know it. Traffic all on Cobb Parkway. But no, man, kind of tell me a story. Kind of how'd you get into this? You're into the nonprofit space. Kind of what led you into being where you are now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm going to date myself a little bit, but 2004, my wife and I moved to this urban community in New Jersey, New Brunswick, New Jersey. And where we were living was about a mile from Rutgers University, a mile from Johnson & Johnson's headquarters, right? So a lot of business bigwigs coming through there. And it was 5 blocks from Crack Alley in town, right? Oh. So whatever you think that means, it means. But the community we were living in was very ethnically diverse, very socioeconomically diverse. And one of the things that happened is we had a group from our church meeting in our house, and we decided we're going to start serving each week at this soup kitchen. It's called Elijah's Promise Soup Kitchen in New Brunswick, and it was the state's largest privately funded soup kitchen. So there was 200-300 people coming through there every day, right? And so we'd go in there, we'd prep dinner, serve, it was sometimes, 150 people at a time. And what we started doing is instead of just serving, after we get done serving, because we see these people on the street, right? I mean, it's like there, unlike here in suburbia, everybody lives pretty close proximity. So if you're walking to the coffee shop from your house, you end up seeing the homeless guys on your way to the coffee shop or the office or whatever. And so we decided we'd just start, grabbing a plate and sitting and talking to them, right?
Right, yeah.
And I think one of the things we walked away realizing is that, people can live, and then we all know this, just we even live in a neighborhood. You can live in close proximity to somebody and not really know them.
Absolutely.
Right? You can pass them every day, and they're just a face. Yep. And what we say isn't gonna be rocket science, but if you sit across the table from somebody enough times and you share a meal and you hear their story and they hear your story, right? You share stories.
You build some connection there.
Yeah. And eventually you even sometimes become friends, right?
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Which is funny. So, we had this interesting situation where, we'd have, and I'd have a friend that, was in finance at Johnson & Johnson or worked for Bain Capital, right? So these are big companies, right? Or Rutgers professor, right? And they be connecting with somebody that was coming out of a big situation with substance use or been living on the street or whatever, and they become friends, right?
Okay. And
what that really segued in us doing was figuring out, okay, and this is really how I got involved in nonprofit work. It was this simple. Is how can we take people from this one area of the community that have time, energy, and resources to help the people on the other side that don't? And so we just started. I mean, it was honestly a few people from my church, a few people from some of the nonprofits in town, like Soup Kitchen, after school programs, stuff like that. And we just started thinking through, why don't we create a volunteer platform where we help people in this one area of the community serve people in the other area of the community and get to know each other along the way.
Right.
That's really what started me in nonprofit work, and it led to some at least for me some really fulfilling moments where you start not just seeing them at the soup kitchen, and I think one of the really personally climactic moments was, a lot of us had transplanted to the area, right? It was New York metro area, so people were moving in and out and everything. And so a buddy of mine who was a professor decided he was going to have everybody for Thanksgiving dinner.
Okay.
But what was really cool about that is it was literally people from both ends of the spectrum at the dinner.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
It's like people that he had met through you guys, helping out, and then has just built such good rapport with him. He's like, man, I'd like this person.
Yeah, it was like a real. It was a real. I mean, that Thanksgiving meal was a real picture of our community, right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and so, I think that's over time, and I lived in. I'm from, Kennesaw, Marietta area, but lived in New Jersey for several years. Lived in Burlington, Vermont for about 12 years. And all that built into me like running a homeless services agency there. But I would say kind of the heartbeat has always been, okay, not just how do we serve people on the fringe of the community, but how do we engage people that maybe wouldn't normally interact with people on the fringe,
right?
To like get to know them on a personal level.
Yeah.
And and this usually happens if like you get to know somebody and they become a name and a face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a single mom living in her car, whether it's the crusty old guy with the brown bag, right?
Yeah.
But if you get to know him and you get to know his situation, and you realize, wait, you may actually have more common ground than you're comfortable admitting, right?
Exactly.
which is often true.
Often, yes.
Right?
More often than you think.
Right. Oh yeah. Like all of a sudden you're like, okay, what can I do about this?
Yeah.
Right. It's not just some stat, not just some news article. And I think that now I work for Must Ministries, the community partnerships, but it's a bigger scale
for sure.
But same principle.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely,
I was just meeting with somebody yesterday, and I said, hey, you should just bring your group over to serve breakfast at our Hope House shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, because once you do that, like once you like see people, have a conversation with them, like people from your group. Like, you don't have to sell them on why this matters.
Exactly.
It's
noticeable because relationships matter so much to people. And that's how I appreciate, I didn't know that. And to your background, I knew you were in that nonprofit space. But that realm of nonprofit, that realm of helping people, that relationship could have saved somebody's life tenfold. You know what I mean? Just because somebody went up and talked to them. Because being in those urban areas, people just pass by them all the time.
They do.
Probably spit on them, do whatever cruel things people do to, people that they look down on, and then you guys were the people that were like, we're more normal than, we're going to go up there and do these things for these people. And I appreciate that very much because that probably saved probably 100 lives at least.
Well, it's I think the tough thing is, and I'll admit this, like I still do that sometimes, right? I get in a hurry. I mean, I used to call it, I know iPods are a dated thing, but I used to call it my iPod bubble. Yeah. Because I would put my earphones in, right?
Yeah.
That's to do it. Put my AirPods in. I'm listening to whatever, podcast or playlist or whatever happens to be. I'm in my own world. Yeah. And it creates a force field around me, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a purposeful, right? So I can be passing somebody every day and not even notice them at all, right? So I mean, even work for a nonprofit, you can fall back into that.
For sure. And that was me walking around college campus, putting the earphones in, just going around.
Yeah. Because you got stuff on your mind, things to do. You got, your life details.
Right. And then you think that matters, and the little things matter more than that. Just enjoying the road to whatever you got going on, you never know. Yeah. But no, all right. Well, kind of what's going on with Must now? What do you got going on at Must?
Yeah, I think one of the things that most excites me, and the thing is, like, as an organization, it's just it's big, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that like sometimes you grow things out of necessity, but also like out of mission and purpose. And I think it's not unlike your business, right? You like have a clear mission, a purpose, a motto that drives you, right? And kind of like our motto is serving our neighbors in need. Yeah. And that just like expand, the need expanded during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys know some business inflation has increased, right? Yeah, and so the need has increased, and like so there's always the challenge of like going, okay, like where do we need to press the gas? Where do we need to hit the brakes? I think one of the things that excite me the most that we get involved in are the things that provide people real off ramps. Yeah. From poverty. Right. That gives them, there's little things we say internally, like not giving people a handout, giving them a hand up, things like that, right?
It's not giving them cash, doing something for them, like pay a bill or a service or something for them. Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes that is necessary, right? You need to help somebody get through a rough spot. But something that happened this past summer that And kind of my backstory with starting some nonprofits and stuff kind of segued into this really well. But Notre Dame University reached out to us out of the blue, yeah, and they had started a few years ago this thing called the Urban Poverty Business Institute, where they would go to different cities. And they had done it in 29 different cities, where they go in and basically what they do is they reach out to people from lower income backgrounds that want to start their businesses, take them through a 6-week boot camp. And it's like TED Talks on steroids, right?
This is awesome, yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Then pair them up with mentors who've successfully started businesses, and then work with a local university to set them up with business students to help build out their business.
Really?
Right? Yeah, which is pretty amazing. So they came to us this summer, and they're like, "Hey, we want to get this started in Atlanta."
Yeah.
We got a pretty big footprint in Atlanta.
Sure.
Yeah, we serve like 70,000 people a year, so that's a big footprint.
Definitely the biggest on the west side, for sure.
Easily. Yeah, easily. I mean, like, we're now the biggest doing this kind of work in Metro, which is bonkers,
awesome.
right? It's crazy to think it just started like in a little church
right?
up Cobb Parkway, and now it's like different sites and mobile units and everything.
Which is awesome, incredible.
So they reach out and they're like, "Hey, can you guys get this up and running? We have a really good relationship with Kennesaw State University, and we need a university partner." They came on board, and Coles College of Business was just awesome because they really had the know-how to set up the boot camp.
Yep.
But the funny thing is, they're talking to us and we're thinking like, you want us to start it in January?
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, it'd be really great if you could start it like September." But I think the reason, there's a couple reasons I'm sharing this. I think one of the and I have biases myself. I just want to say that, like,
for sure, we're human.
Yeah, I do. And sometimes I can make the assumption, and I'm gonna use the word "we" just because I figure there's people listening that share this bias, right? That if somebody is in a lower income, impoverished background, that they don't have the knowledge base or the capacity to start a business and run it, right? Right.
Both. It's typically, it's one or the other, or it's both.
Yeah, and one of the things we found out pretty quickly. So we started putting the word out. We gave ourselves like kind of like we used like this Black Friday approach, right? We're going to do 3 weeks. We're going to blitz through community partners in different areas of need, right? Communities of need, and just see what our response is, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So KSU's building out the boot camp, bringing in some pretty amazing entrepreneurs and professors to do the boot camp. Yeah. And we were talking through every detail you can on how to start a business from scratch. I mean, it was good. I mean, it's stuff like people would pay like thousands of dollars. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Pay $2,000 for a week course on,
Oh yeah,
you only get a quarter of the knowledge.
I mean, I can't make this up. We had somebody who was an early, like on the front end of like YouTube marketing, right? Made millions off of it.
That's
and talked about just how they thought through it in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
When they had nothing, right?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever it first started. Yeah. Whenever it was a little tube on your iPhone back in the day.
Yes. And so but the lessons, not her lessons now, right? Her lessons in those early days.
When she started.
Yeah, because she had grown up inner city impoverished community, right? Yeah. So it was like same background.
There's no difference between me and you.
Yeah.
I just didn't quit.
Right. That's it. And so anyway, we put the word out. We had 40 slots in the first cohort. We had 192 people apply.
Dang.
Right? So it's like, we're like going, okay, this is like, this is really scratching an itch in our community. And so we just moved from the mentoring phase. So and we had Cobb Chamber of Commerce, was great. Actually, Mount Bethel Church in East Cobb, big church, a lot of successful business.
Is this the one right there on the corner?
It's over on near Johnson's Ferry Road, Roswell Road in East Cobb.
Is it the one that's on the corner, like it sits right on the corner road?
Yeah.
I believe that's one of Roderick's people. Yeah.
Yeah. So they came through because they have a lot of successful business guys in their church. Some people through KSU, some people through Cobb Chamber entrepreneurship group there, stepped up to be mentors. Right. Awesome. So we had people who really knew their stuff. Somebody's wanting to figure out how do I start a food truck.
Right.
You could pair them up with somebody who's done a food truck.
Which is awesome because it's hard to find that compatibility, and people typically business owners are willing to speak about it. It's just the fact of you got to get in touch with them.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And meeting weekly, one-on-one with somebody, pouring into them, saying like how to do it. And so it's been just, on a personal level, it's been very encouraging because seeing just that. And I'll tell you one lesson I learned. First, and I went to most of the boot camp sessions myself because I wanted to see.
You wanted to see it too?
Yeah, I wanted to see it. If I'm going to help run this, I want to see like how it really works under the hood. But first speaker got up and said the things you have learned navigating poverty, like the stick-withedness, the perseverance, how to figure things out with no resources, right? Like all those things that you have in your toolkit, is what's going to make you successful in starting a business.
Exactly.
Right? And it has.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
I feel like there is the most successful entrepreneurs come from that type of demographic.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they have that drive as opposed to a kid that was given a $70,000 car in high school and went to the University of Georgia, Alabama, and all they did was nothing with what they got going on. They got the degree, but they didn't learn any type of work ethic. So then they go into the corporate world instead of going into doing what they really could do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of being your full potential.
Yeah, and and the difference with our thing for a lot of our ACE participants, they've just never had anybody's reach across the table and say, here's the tools to do it.
Right. Or somebody believe in them, probably.
Yeah.
Somebody to back them, because sometimes that's part of that, that type of environment growing up. Because I have plenty of friends that have grown up in that same type of environment. So I definitely appreciate it. That's why I like, I very well relate to what you guys do, and I love it.
Yeah. So it's it's gone well enough this first round that and I need to give Kennesaw State University a lot of credit because Dr. Mark Hyatt there leads it on their end, and they just put it together in such a way that you're like, okay, and they're not getting any fanfare for it. They do it just because they love the outcome it has for people's lives. But like we're gonna ramp up another round in July. Expand it to 50 people, right? Because
just keep growing it as it goes. As the need is there, why not keep growing it? It's a great thing for the community.
But I think the one reason I share that is like, okay, you're looking, you're going, okay, 40 people going through this. What difference does 40 people make? But if they go back to their community, they start a business, they're employed themselves. If a handful of them become employers, right? I mean, like, oh, you work for a business here, right?
Yeah.
So Jay starting this business, it's had an exponential impact in all of your lives.
1,000,000%. Because
right?
we all work here. He pays us.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Well, that's the same thing.
Same thing. Yes.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
And we all grew up. Jay is from our community. You know what I mean? Yeah. Jay is my dad's, one of my dad's lifelong best friends. So that's once I graduated, I was like, man, it's almost a no-brainer. If I'm gonna go in the sales world, go try it out, see what happens. Yeah. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad I made my decision.
It's always better, man, working for somebody you know and trust, right? Rather than somebody that's just a suit.
Just a face.
No offense to any of our listeners that are just suits, though.
No, you're not wrong though, because I tell you, I'm not the one to sit down and work for somebody that's just in the suit. I'm somebody, I'm a very personable person, so I'm going to sit there. I want to know you and know what's going on with you.
Right.
But no, all right. So kind of what did you do really good when you started? Actually, no. What did you do really bad when you started? We'll go with that first. We'll save the good juicy bits for them.
I think
if you could change something, really.
This is like the cliche of cliches, right? Just. But I'm gonna say it anyway. Whenever you're starting something, it is, and I would say with the ACE program, we did not experience this, but that's mainly because we had a lot of support from Notre Dame, great partnership with Kennesaw State University, and despite whatever my shortcomings might be, I fortunately work for an organization that's been around for 52 years,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's a lot of just institutional experience between the three, right?
For sure.
But I would say, especially when I was involved with starting like, volunteer platform, nonprofit, urban ministry, whatever you want to call it, and I think this is a shared experience with a lot of entrepreneurs too, is it almost always takes longer.
Yeah.
It almost always takes more time, energy, and resources than you can map out. Right? Even if you think you've covered it all, you just haven't.
Yeah.
Right? Right. So just go ahead and know, no matter how much you think you've mapped it out and what the time, energy, and resources are, it's going to be more. And, I've been really fortunate to have a wife who's supportive of my habits, right?
Right.
You know, but I think you just got to know that. I don't want to say I didn't know it, because I probably did know it. Knowing it informationally and knowing it experientially are two different things.
For sure.
But knowing like, okay, and I'll give you for instance, is like the nonprofit I helped start in New Jersey. I realized a couple years into it that I wasn't going to be able to make a living ever from it.
Yes,
right?
I mean it happens like that.
Right, and I was going to be honest. I wanted to, right?
It was good for your soul, though.
It was very good for my soul, but you know, and I think that's one of the things. Like even with the ACE program I help with now, we call it the Aspiring Community Entrepreneur Program. So that's what ACE stands for. But you know, is sometimes a tough question with some tough Q&A with somebody. Is going, you can have a really good idea. It could be really meaningful. It could be impactful, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit. But if you can't monetize that, then you don't have a business.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? You have a hobby. You have a passion. And that's fine in nonprofit world to a degree, right? But I think that was the one thing I did not think through my first round well.
Okay.
Is like, okay, I know how to serve my neighbors in need. I know how to engage volunteers, but I hadn't really figured out how do I make that financially sustainable for the organization or for myself, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, at the time, we were like double income, no kids, family. My wife had a good corporate sales job, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, so I had freedom, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, she knows I'm thankful for that big time. And so that gave me freedom to make less. But yeah, and I think, you know, I think it's important too, is when you have those experiences, not having to learn the lesson twice.
Right. And I feel like those experiences that you got from that time, or no money can put the value on that. Like no amount of money could put the value on what, you know, that brought to you as a person. You know what I mean? That fulfillment and that enjoyment of helping people. I feel like I'd love to help people, but I'm saying you seem that same way. Yeah. If there's no better fulfillment. That's probably like you're working in a nonprofit now, so I would assume that, you know, that's like your end goal is I just want to help people, you know.
Yeah, I want to see them succeed in what they're gifted at doing, right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah, so it's, and you know, but I'll say, like, you know, that lesson, you know, fast forward years later, I get hired by an organization called A New Place in Burlington, Vermont. And, you know, we're trying to think through, okay, how do we expand what we're doing in transitional housing? How do we open a winter shelter? Well, that experience, even though it was on a smaller scale, right? It's like instantly it's going, and it's not about the money. It's about the mission. Mission comes first. But I had somebody on our board say this to me: no money, no mission. Right? You have to figure out how to resource this if we're going to make a long-term impact. You know, if you're wanting to figure out how to expand your business here, right?
Yeah.
Your footprint, you have to figure out how to resource it, right? Or it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes, you know, I got an entrepreneurial, you know, heartbeat inside of me. Is I think sometimes, especially people kind of in our lane, whether non-profit, for-profit, because we're dreamers, right? Is we also need to like sit down and figure out strategically, right? Think through it well,
for sure,
right? Because especially like as you grow, other people depend on you doing it well.
Exactly, and you growing as well too, yeah. And we relate to that very well, because that's what we do for the podcast. Like you said, like you can have an idea, but if you can't, you know, you can't do anything to get it monetized, you know. Kind of think about that, like with the soup sandwich. That's what we do. We'll try to get ideas, we'll throw them together, but you can have a great idea, but you can't put together the 30 minutes to an hour of content. It's not a good idea. You know, it could be, but you just got to figure out how to make it work. You know what I mean? And that's not my side, because I'm not creative in that sense.
Yeah, I tell you one of the challenging parts of it on the nonprofit side, right? Is like, so, you know, when you're, and especially in the world of what we do, and there's some exceptions to this in the nonprofit world, where sometimes you're doing something nonprofit oriented and you actually have resources coming in from the people you're helping, right? That could happen like with an after school, like a preschool would be an example, right?
Sure,
a daycare program, right? It's like maybe a nonprofit, but they're making money off the people they're helping.
Exactly.
And I mean that in a negative way, but with much of what we do is the people we help, it could be years or decades, right? Yeah. And there's no expectation that they would get back to us, right?
Yeah.
And so it really does involve figuring out, okay, helping people see why that cause or why that mission should matter to them. And not to sound selfish, but why it benefits them and the community they live in.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because
that people do look at it as what's going to benefit them,
Yeah.
Selfish people, man.
Yeah. And so there's always that tension of like, okay, how do you and so I mean, and so in some ways it is similar to a for-profit business because when you go, so you're involved in sales, right, Ezra?
Oh yeah.
So when you go into a place of business, you still have to show them how the money they're going to put out is going to benefit them.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the easiest part of the conversation. The hardest part is getting them to have that conversation with you, for them to just open up to even let you show them,
Yeah.
Because nobody knows how to read a merchant statement. Nobody does. And if they tell you they do, they're lying. Unless they've been in this industry or they worked at the bank before, So they'll be like, oh, I'm getting charged this rate. And I'm like, well, let me look at it. That's perfect. You're the perfect person for me to say you've been with the same person for 10 years. That's even more reason for them to be able to screw you because they know you're not looking at it.
They're on autopilot, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And they're like, whatever. They went from 2.5 at one point in time. Now they're getting charged 3.5. And they're like, how did that happen? And I'm like, you stayed with the same person for 10 years and you never asked them to show you how to read it. I'll show you how to read it, and this is proof right here. Here you go, and this is what I'm going to put it at. And then they'll watch me write it down. They're like, no way.
Then you'll tell them how you're going to beat what they got.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Because, and that's very, very true, though, because, it's hard to get people to, give you that time of day or get people to switch, Some people, it is that switch. It's that you got to pay $350 for a terminal. They're like, can't do it. I'm like, you do $100,000 a month. You don't want to pay $350 for a terminal? I know you got probably $100,000 in your bank account. What are we stressing about that for? It's just that thing. People don't like to be sold to either.
Yeah.
Which is also one of those things. But no, man. What did you do? What did you do really good when you started? If you look back and you knew this is my bread and butter. Besides being a helper, you know what I mean?
Well, I would say like being clear on mission, right?
Okay.
Knowing what we are about, what we're not about. You can't do everything well.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I tend to be definitely a believer in the less is more philosophy. Okay. Right? So it's like you can try to do, and maybe it's because I'm not good at much.
Okay.
Right? And I'm probably good. I mean, seriously, I'm probably good at about 3 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
From like an organizational perspective.
Right.
I get outside of those 3 things, it's not going to benefit me, or even more importantly, it's not going to benefit the people I work with, people I'm trying to serve. Organizations tend to be the same way, right? It's like if they unless you're like Walmart or Amazon, right? Which there's exceptions. You're usually not the exception, right? Exactly. Like anybody says that thinks that they're exception. Well, there's a reason there's exception. They call them exceptions. But I think like the one thing we did well was figuring out, okay, what's our mission? And staying in that lane, right? And so if it's like, okay, our lane, and this was going to be an example of kind of that first startup in New Jersey, is mobilizing volunteers, right? And bridging the gap,
right,
between different socioeconomic groups in our community. It's kind of like, and so, and we even had a catchphrase, moving our neighbors from awareness to action and serving their neighbors.
That's awesome.
Right? That was it.
Awesome.
So everything we did fit in that. And so if it wasn't involved in that, so if a project didn't allow us to engage volunteers from the university and the business community, serving their neighbors that they didn't normally interact with, we just said no. Right,
that's fine. And
it had to involve hands-on, we're actually going to meet each other.
Yeah.
And create a common ground experience.
Yeah, we're gonna build relationships here. We're not just gonna be people taking pictures and like,
Yes.
hey, we're doing
Yeah.
good. Like, no, we're actually gonna be doing the good. You know, we're not doing this for some type of social status. You know what I mean? We're doing it for personal status. You know,
Right.
for your personal heart and your soul. You know.
So we stayed focused on the mission, right?
That's
and
awesome.
so and I think that and that keeps people coming back, right? Because they understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and
it probably runs people off pretty quick too. Gets the ones
it
that
does.
aren't. Gets the ones that aren't genuine.
You
They
figure out who's in, who's not, which and not everybody's going to be in. But I think that's the one thing we did do well. I was like, figure out, okay, this is our mission. We're going to communicate it clearly, and we're going to stick with it.
That's awesome, and I know the viewers can definitely appreciate what you do because 90% of people are good, so they definitely can feel to that. You know, but they're that 10% piss off.
Well, and I think businesses.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like you know what your mission is.
Yeah.
You know what your sweet spot is.
Yep.
And you stick with it because that's what you're really good at.
Yep, because you can speak that language to those people,
Yeah.
or to that business owner. You know, like auto shop. You go in auto shop, if you know things about cars, that's a perfect place for you to go to. You know what I mean? To go sell in my industry for you to go sell to them because you know about it. So you can go in there and know kind of what that shop owner's got going on.
Yeah.
Or if you got a bunch of dogs, you can go to a pet groomer. You know, you can speak that language to them. Like, hey, my pet's got to do this, and this, and they're like, oh my God, this person's pretty knowledgeable. I like them. And then you're like, all right, cool. You know, could I look at your business? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, I got two brothers. One of them random, but we talk a lot. We're super close, so we'll talk all the time, share stories, and leadership. Is similar, like how you run an organization.
Yeah.
Leadership skills apply cross platforms
Everywhere.
But his, his business.
Mm-hmm.
He owns and runs it's the most random thing, industrial ball bearings, right?
Really?
Yeah.
So like I guess the ball bearings that go on like big cranes or big equipment.
Anything you can imagine, everything from an aircraft carrier to your
Anything.
wheels in your car. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And
I
so
never heard that.
yeah. So shipping them from Germany because that's the best place to get them and distribute them companies across the U.S. primarily. But I mean that's a good example.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very focused market. Right.
For sure. Very specific niche.
Right. And you wouldn't be like, okay, hey, why don't you expand that?
Yeah.
And and get into sheet metal or something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's completely opposite spectrums off the spectrum.
And so that's a very easy example.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes somebody good in that is understanding that and staying in their sweet spot.
Specification.
Yeah. And I think for entrepreneurs starting their businesses, over and over again,
do what you're good at.
The people that understand their sweet spot,
are the
stick
ones
with it.
Most successful.
Yeah.
For sure. Because people get knocked on their ass and then they ain't getting back up. They're like, what did I do wrong? Like, you didn't get back up. Success is defined as as long as you get up one more time than you fall. And everybody's is different. Your success could be $100 million. Mine could be $5. It's all perspective of who you are and where you're at in life. Which is pretty cool too.
It is.
People don't look at it like that. A ton. I feel like not enough people look at it that way.
Now the comparison game is not a good one either, man.
No, man.
Like nobody puts on social. I mean,
like I know I'm never gonna make as much money as Alex Rodriguez, or dang Joey Diaz or any of these people. Any of these big time people. I know that.
Probably not.
But if I did, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I'm cool. My success will be fine different because I don't expect to do that. You know what I mean? I expect to make some good money in my life, but not like that. Not that $350 million a year contract with CBS or TBS, wherever they're at the time. I don't think that's an attainable goal.
Not unless this podcast really takes off.
I mean, you'll be having a different conversation.
Yeah. It's all up to your editor, though. All the weight's on him to make that happen.
It is. It's on this guy back here, Scott. Pan the camera to him. But no, man. Do you know where the Illusion brand ship came from?
Oh yeah, it came from. Man, I always get these two conquistadors mixed up. It's either Cortez or Coronado.
Cortez.
Yeah, Cortez shows up, coast of South America, I think. Is that right? And he wants his men to go in and take names, take over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure they don't want to go back to Spain. He burns the ships, right?
Yep. He made them take apart all the ships, his armada of ships. It could have been 5 ships, could have been 20. Don't know what was going on in the 1800s at this time, or 1700s, whenever it was. But he made them disassemble the ships and take off all their products and leave it on the beach and burn them. we're gonna live here. We're gonna die trying.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the same thing that we go through in the business world, entrepreneur space. It's a very fitting term. That's kind of how we got the name. We stuck with it.
Yeah, no turning back, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I think that mentality's got to be there, because if you don't have like that kind of stick with itness. Yeah.
Because we're human. If we give ourselves that little thing in the back that's like, you could do this instead of this, then you get that little bit of doubt, and doubt is a killer for the human brain and for our work ethics, for sure. I firmly believe that, because I believe everything's mental. Your situation, you can be in a good situation and think you're and have the worst depression in your life, because it's all mental. What I mean? It's all how perspective, how you think about it, and how you do it. But man, I appreciate you. Kevin, tell them where to find you, and kind of whatever you want to tell them.
Yeah. So work for Must Ministries. We're pretty findable.
Very findable.
Yeah. I was gonna say you can look us up on the internet pretty easily and see lots of opportunities to serve with us, support us. Anybody wants to reach out to me directly, email's easy. It's kpounds@mustministry.org. kpounds@mustministries, plural.org. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you being here. Most importantly, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to building this relationship further, man.
Thanks, Ezra. Sure. Appreciate you guys being in our corner too.
Yes, sir. Always, man.